God.
Thanks be to God.
Please be seated. Harry Wong is the leading guru of effective strategies for new teachers. His book, The First 100 Days, has sold over 3 million copies and is a preeminent book on classroom management and teaching for lesson achievement. The book walks a teacher, either novice or veteran, through the most effective ways to begin a school year and continue to become an effective teacher. This is the most basic book on how to teach. Every teacher and administrator needs to have a copy. I had my own copy when I started teaching. The book is used in thousands of school districts in over 65 countries and in over 1,000 college classrooms. The first thing that Harry Wong advises teachers to do is set policy and procedures for classroom management. Basically, what are the rules for turning in homework, or for quiet reading time, for asking and answering questions, for lining up for recess. His advice is that if students know what is expected, they'll be more successful in following those rules and procedures, making classroom instruction more effective. But Mr. Wong had never met my class of 5th graders in Deloach. I followed his advice, and some of it proved to be extremely helpful. Yet there are some kids who are destined to be rule breakers. There are kids who will do everything in their power to disrupt fellow students, to cause chaos during independent learning times, to push every single button until the new teacher implodes. I had a room full of those kids. My personal pet peeve was when students did not wait for the appropriate time to ask a question. Maybe I was going to get to their question in just a few minutes. Maybe it was already addressed. Maybe they just wanted to go to the bathroom. When kids raised their hands and then started waving them fiercely, followed by kind of a jumping jack motion, I often hesitated to call on them because I wanted them to know I was in control. It says here, wait for sarcastic laughter. I was not in control. Their hand waving turned into grunting and finally into downright aggressive disruption. They wanted to be called upon to share their immense wisdom and inspiration on the topic at hand. My classroom management during those times of questions was not working so well. It wasn't working because I wasn't addressing the main issue. At our school, we had many programs supplied by outside resources. Our DARE program was taught by a local police officer aimed at giving kids information about drug abuse, drug avoidance, and the like. We had our guidance counselor who would come in and talk with the kids about bullying and ways to get along. There was an excellent program one year underwritten by the local hospital that dealt with self-esteem and was designed to address those causes that could lead to self-harm. Every other week, Lori would come to my classroom and work with my students for an hour. I usually stayed in the back of the room and graded papers or got caught up on lesson plans or something. I would keep tabs on the kids and how they were interacting with Lori and with each other. Can you remember back to grade school? When you had an opportunity to not be taught by your homeroom teacher? When somebody new came into the room to talk with you? Well, at the 5th grade level, the kids were always engaged when that happened. Right away, I admired Lori for her skill in managing these kids. She was a social worker, not a trained teacher, but she taught me plenty. When the students started to get antsy about wanting to ask a question, Lori would look at them in the eye and say, I see you. Her very gentle and affirming, I see you, immediately addressed the cause that usually led to aggressive hand raising. I see you was what most kids needed to hear. I see you told them that they were noticed, that somebody cared enough to address them personally and acknowledge that they were in the discussion and had questions. 9 times out of 10, the moment Lori said, I see you, the student's hand would drop and they were once again in tune with their instruction. It was brilliant. It was effective. It was simple. I see you was sometimes all it took. Because think about it. When you have a question that won't let go, you probably aren't paying attention to anything else other than wanting to ask your question. A hand wagging fiercely in the air was an indicator to Lori that the student wasn't still following. They had left the conversation until they were seen. In the words recorded in Exodus that Donna shared, we find Moses struggling with his doubts about leading the Israelites. He questions God about how they, the Israelites, will know that God is with them. How can Moses convince these followers that God is with them? How can they be seen? Moses wants to be able to see God, to know his glory, to share that vision with those wandering in the desert with him. Moses wants to see God. God says, no one may look upon my face. Moses persists. Let me see you. Let me see your glory. Moses is not much different than a fifth grader. He wants to see God because he knows that if he sees God, he will also be seen. Moses is asking God to say, I see you. So, what is underlying this driving need for us to be seen? Several authors have penned a blog and articles about the importance of being seen, and it comes down to this. Having our need to be seen provides these benefits. 1, it makes us come alive. 2, it validates us. 3, it infuses us with energy. And 4, it motivates us to engage, to respond, and to contribute. Just being seen. Craig Dowden, PhD, shares some intriguing research conducted by Dan Airley and his colleagues, which highlights how powerful and important a simple gesture of acknowledgement can be in terms of our level of engagement. So I'm going to paraphrase this study that he did. They gave the people taking the study a small task to find some letter pattern within a list of words. And then when they found all of those letter patterns, they were supposed to bring the paper up to the people running the study for them to record it. And then they were supposed to do another one and another one, and they were looking to see how motivated people were to keep working on this project. So they had 3 control factors. When some of the students came up, the instructor took the paper, looked at them, and then put it over on a stack. When another group of people came up, the instructor took the paper and right away put it in a drawer. And when the third group of students came up, however they designated it, the instructor took the paper and immediately put it in a paper shredder. Now, who do you think were the least motivated? It really wasn't the paper shredded. Paper shredded and put it in a drawer right away without looking at it had the same result. The only ones who did well were the ones that turned in the paper and the instructor looked at them and acknowledged that they had given them something and then put it aside. We need to be seen. They thought it was critical to highlight the lack of difference between the ignored and shredded conditions. Essentially, ignoring the work of someone else has the same impact as promptly putting it in a shredder. We have a need to be seen. Have you ever felt like somebody was looking at you but not seeing you? I'm sure my wife feels this way. I'm glad she had a prior engagement if she's not here to see this. She will be telling me something about her day, and I'm going through the motions of listening to her and occasionally looking in her direction and muttering an uh-huh every so often. But am I really listening? Am I really seeing her? The other side of this issue of being seen is from the point of view of the person wanting or not wanting to be seen. Have you had those days? Maybe it's a bad hair day. Maybe you're feeling bloated. Maybe you hate your clothes. Maybe you cut yourself shaving. You may not want to be seen. You may just want the day to progress without having anyone really see you. Usually, we use our body language to try to hide. We make ourselves small, or we cover up parts of ourselves, or we don't make eye contact, or we shrink into the shadows. Because if we're having a bad day and somebody sees us, oh my goodness, what must they think? How am I being perceived? How dare they judge me? We may not always want to be seen. Being seen means letting yourself be vulnerable in the moment. If you're struggling with something or having a self-conscious day, like I mentioned before, the tendency is to hide it. Being seen, even when you're vulnerable, is sometimes exactly what most of us crave. Truly being seen feels like unconditional acceptance and belonging. We had another phrase that we used a lot in school. It was, those kids needing love the most will ask for it in the most unloving ways. Also, seeing and being seen opens a feedback loop for empathy. There's nothing like being seen, being vulnerable and witnessing the same thing in others to create compassion and turn off that judging button. And most importantly, when we observe others, we start to realize that the smiles and the shifting and the hiding are in all ways we've developed of trying to control others. And I don't mean like power-hungry, evil genius kind of control. I mean, we try to alter situations to make us feel more comfortable. We want to be seen, but we want to be seen on our terms. Moses had terms. He wanted to be 100% sure that God was with him, so he wanted to be seen. My students had questions, probably some particularly good questions, probably some questions that might lead to further understanding and application of the lesson. They needed to be seen. The Samaritan woman at the well, she was quite alarmed when Jesus saw through her. She may not have been trying to hide the fact that she had had many husbands and many affairs. She probably did not wear a scarlet letter to alert everyone to what she was when she was being seen. But Jesus saw her. And in seeing her and naming her, Jesus gave her peace. And by being seen, she saw the Savior. She became the first recorded missionary because she was seen. Jesus, the Christ, through us, needs to be seen. On that walk to Emmaus, the two fellows were walking along and Jesus falls in step with them and they begin talking and they're surprised that he knows nothing about the crucifixion and how all of Jerusalem is upset and the disciples are worried. And so they talk with him and they get to their house and they invite him in and they have communion and finally, aha, he is seen in what he shared with them. And they have this realization. Weren't our hearts burning when we were talking with him? And then when he opened up the scriptures to us and he shared bread and wine with us, we saw him. And we too were seen. When they stopped going on and on about their plight, about their worries, about their concerns with where the world was headed, when they were finally in tune, in communion with Christ, was when he was seen. And in that knowing, we too were seen. Jesus tells us, I see you. I have clothed you in righteousness. I have prepared a room for you. I have brought you light and peace. I see you. For all of our wants to be seen, we need to remember that what people see in us is also important. So here's the challenge. Find a way this week to be seen. Find a way this week for Christ to be seen in you. Find a way this week to tell someone you love, I see you. And most importantly, find a way this week to tell someone you don't know,